I'll tell you what, man, the future of Tennessee football is extremely bright. I mean, Knoxville has got to be humming knowing what they got for the long term, especially with how Josh Heupel and the NIL collective is working. But let's just focus in on 2024. This is a team that has a legit shot of going to the college football playoff. They have a legit shot of making it down to Atlanta. They have a chance of going deep into the postseason, especially with what they return on offense, return on defense, what they brought in via the recruiting trail and the transfer portal. And they got the most important piece. They got the quarterback. Nico Iamaleava is set to begin a brand new era of volunteer football, and Knoxville could be humming for the first time since 1998. But I say this with caution to every Tennessee fan that listens to this program. You have to realize number 8 might be the number one reason for optimism, but especially early on in the season, he can't get through this battle alone. So let's discuss what's going on SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video. Hit the ring notification down below. That way you don't miss a single episode because we're talking college football every single day leading up to week 1. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. If you hate me and you want to scream at me, follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson. If you like me, congratulate me at Mr. Cole Thompson. And to keep up with the number one source for all things SEC, visit SECUnfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by RHOBACK. Use promo code SECU for 20% off all joggers, polos, hoodies, shorts, much, much more. Promo code SECU at RHOBACK.com. Tennessee is a special team. I love what they have on both sides of the football. I love the names they brought in via the portal. They got 2 of my favorite transfers of all in Zalance Hurd and in Holden Stays, the tight end out of Notre Dame. I am high on what the Volunteers can be. But it all starts and ends with the quarterback. Nico Iamaleava, to some, was the number 1 overall recruit, to most the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country in 2023. He sat last year. He got to learn the ins and outs of Josh Heupel's offense. He got to understand exactly what Hype is trying to implement year in and year out. And now he gets to take center stage in Neyland. This is a monumental quarterback. This is a game changer. When you look back at the history of Tennessee football, really SEC quarterbacks, the hype, the persona, the enigma that surrounds them, there are very few who are going to have the same type of expectations going into year 1 as Nico. But also, this is a team sport. Nico may end up being one of the best players to ever grace Knoxville, Tennessee. But everyone has to take those baby steps. And I know there's going to be people who say, but Cole, didn't you watch the bowl game last year? Didn't you see him be able to ball out against Iowa? They're the godfather of defense of the Big Ten. I caution you. Please do not fall to the bowl syndrome narrative. There's always going to be a player or two that shines when they get their moment in the sun. In fact, we can talk about a quarterback that was supposed to live up to expectations last year in Knoxville after balling out against Clemson, throwing an orange 98 yards through the stands and making it look like a breeze. And you had a solid season, but not what you expected after what Hendon Hooker did. And I'm not trying to go take a shot at Joe Milton, but let's just make things a buck. You definitely had high expectations because of a bowl game. Don't fall for that narrative. You have a couple of major tests that are really going to put Nico under the spotlight and under the microscope very early on in the season. NC State and Charlotte, North Carolina. That might be a neutral site location, but it is far from neutral when you know what's going to be coming up from Raleigh. That's a great defense. That's a good quarterback. That's a very solid run game. You got to be able to give him time to throw. And more importantly, you got to be able to contain Grayson McCall and Derek Waters in the backfield, Jordan Waters in the backfield. 2 weeks later, you travel to Norman, Oklahoma to take on the Sooners. And yeah, they got some question marks on the offensive line. Make no mistake about it, but they don't have any questions defensively. That's not a good Big 12 defense. That's a good defense overall. And then 2 weeks after that, you got to go face off against Florida. And whether or not this game is in Neyland, whether this game is in Gainesville, regardless, we know what the history says about these two teams matching up. So Nico cannot do this alone. You got to have great protection on the offensive line. We know what the offensive personnel is going to look like. The up-tempo, go-go motion, spread you vertically down the field, wide receivers going deep. That's what Heupel likes to do. Keep the tempo moving. But it's going to be important for somebody to step up. Squirrel White on the outside, being that vertical threat. He knows how to speed through school zones with his speed. How about he goes ahead and bees that reliable pass catcher? Chris Brazzell coming on over from Tulane, 6'5", big catch radius. Can he be effective inside the red zone, inside the 15, inside the 25? Holden Stays at tight end. How about Brew McCoy? physical, burly type of wide receiver that is going to be able to play through contact? Can he step up? Because back in 2022, one of the biggest blessings for Hendon Hooker was he had two solid wide receivers that consistently made play after play after play, and they complemented each other extremely well in Cedric Tillman and in Jalen Hyatt. So do you have that mentality once again at your disposal in Knoxville? Can your defense step up? As much as we want to say it's a quarterback game, the defense also has to carry their end of the weight. And I know what you're going to say. They got better defensively. We've heard that. We've heard that for years from teams across the college football landscape. We've gotten better in the secondary. Our linebacking core is great. I think the linebacking core is vastly underrated in Knoxville. I believe the defensive line might be the best in the SEC. I do have questions when it comes to your secondary. You lost some pieces. Do you feel like that you got enough that's going to be able to withstand a couple of explosive plays, especially against an offense that is going to be vertical just like you in Norman, Oklahoma, in front of that crowd, inside of a stadium that knows how to fill up and be ravenous when the games are at its brightest? You don't think that can happen? Do you have a defense that can make those plays? Do you have James Pierce being able to come off the edge, beat an offensive tackle, put the quarterback in the ground, and give Nico back the ball? The run game. People want to talk about Josh Heupel's offense being so dynamically, fundamentally vertical. Send throws down the field, left and right. Just go deep. You know this is a predominantly run-oriented offense. A lot of people forget about that. This is a team that knows how to bully the football on the ground, run it north and south, and not miss. They got a good guy in Dylan Sampson to lead the charge. Do they have a complementary piece alongside it? Everything that we're talking about right now can be official for Tennessee. I think Tennessee could easily go ahead and punch their ticket to Atlanta. I think Tennessee right now is one of the biggest risers in the future of the SEC. Back when we thought about Tennessee in the Philip Fulmer era, where they had the right pieces, people saw Knoxville, people saw Neyland, people saw the orange, and they felt fear when they marched into there. And you know what? That atmosphere has always stayed the same through the Derek Dooley era, through the Lane Kiffin hop, skipping a jump, through the Butch Jones time, through the Jeremy Pruitt times, through the dark, depressing moments when you thought that Tennessee was only going to be a laughingstock, when they never were able to get back to the level of what we know volunteer football should be. They deserve this as much as anybody else. And in fact, right now, the way that Heupel's got this team rolling when it comes to recruiting, they're top 5 going into 2025. The NIL collective is spending money and putting their funds where their mouths are. They're writing checks that they can cash, and they're turning it into an atmosphere that will make it a catechism of craziness on game day. What you want when you're on Saturdays. But this is the year that you get to start off on a right note. This is a year where the schedule does bode well in your favor, especially down the stretch. You get a win over NC State. You get a win over Oklahoma. You beat Florida. You dismantle Florida. You're sitting undefeated going into the third Saturday in October. Who's stopping you at that point? Who's going to be able to say, well, Tennessee, they're going to crumble. They're going to fall apart. This may be a team that you don't want to face in the playoff, especially with this offensive personnel. I love the additions that you brought in via the portal. I think there's a ton of names. There's a grit and a mentality about this offensive line that's vastly underappreciated. But you got to remember, Nico is the centerpiece. But much like when you go ahead and have a 5-course meal, you get a couple sides. Those side dishes are just as important to make it an experience as the actual main dish. So you got your chicken. It's a great piece of meat. You love it. You can't wait. It's juicy. It's tender. It's flavorful. But those mashed potatoes come in handy. Those green beans come in handy. That gravy that you drizzle on top comes in handy. That's Chris Brazzell. That's Holden Stays. That's Lance Hurd. That's Cooper Mays. That's the offensive line. That's James Pierce on the defense being that dessert, the last piece that is going to fill your belly and make you happy. That's what you got. Everyone's got to step up in Tennessee. Because here's the thing. If the Volunteers get the version of Nico that everyone imagines, and I understand there's a lot of pressure on him, let's temper it a little bit. Let's bring it back to about a 6. We're at about an 11 right now. We're not hearing many people talk about the future of volunteer football. We're hearing a lot about Nico. But let's go ahead and bring that down a little bit. Maybe raise the atmosphere when it comes to the entire team, the entire persona, the entire roster. When you get to that level, how do you feel? You can get that version, the highest end, 10-2, 11-1. 11-1 guarantees you a spot in the playoff. That's for damn sure. Probably guarantees you a spot down in Atlanta. All that aside, with what this offense can be, with what this defense is hopefully going to be, if everyone carries their weight while Nico gets acclimated to the offense, gets very under key. Cool, calm, consistent. Tennessee's in for a special year. I like the Volunteers moving forward. I think that they're a very special team. I think that they have the right pieces in play to be able to hold their own moving forward. But the thing is, they just got to make sure that Nico feels comfortable. The second that he starts to feel the pressure, that's where things go haywire. If you're able to get him to coast very early on in the season, heading into Alabama, by the second half of the year, you may be the team to beat in the SEC. And that's not an oxymoron. That's a reality that I don't think many people down in the Southeastern Conference want to actually admit. But let me know in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me? Let's go ahead and put a little bit more pressure on the folks around Nico Iamaleava, not just on number 8 himself. Make sure that also you're following us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Follow us also wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Leave a 5-star review if you love this type of content. Leave a 1-star review if you hate this type of content. And make sure that also you check us out at SECUnfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks. Later.